evening of surprises in the nation's capital, from hail in Sterling to a sign askew near Rock Creek. What fell from the sky on this day left an indelible mark.
Heavy rains have battered central China's Hunan province, leaving 6 people dead and 3 missing. And more than 123,000 people have been evacuated. The rainfall in the first week of June has reached a record high, twice the amount of the same period in previous years. As of Saturday, the heavy rains have affected more than 1.5 million of people in 7 cities in the province, including Yueyang, Changde, and Zhangjiajie. Weather authorities say a new round of heavy rain is also coming, which will make the situation. Between 40 and 45 degrees Celsius in the worst hit Telangana and Andhra Pradesh states, after soaring to as high as 48 degrees Celsius earlier in the week. Most of the dead were poor, homeless, or elderly. Hundreds die at the height of summer every year in India. This year's toll is reportedly the second highest in the country's history. Cooling monsoon rains are expected next week in southern India before gradually advancing north.
Starved California. The most recent survey puts the snowpack levels in the Sierra Nevada mountains at a shocking 0%, meaning it's gone. It's melted. Here's the latest map showing zeros across the board all along the Sierra. And here's a snowpack map for the same time in 2009, before the current drought began. It shows levels ranging from 7 to 15%. Not great, but better than zero. So basically, California's main source of water for the summer months has already melted away. And with mandatory water restrictions already in place, 2015 is on pace to be the state's hottest year on record.
A spectacular sight in the Galapagos. Lava from a volcano flows relentlessly into the ocean. The Wolf volcano erupted last week for the first time in 33 years, sending flames and smoke soaring into the air. The lava has continued to flow since then. Tourists have been marveling over the sight. The volcano is one of 4 on the Galapagos' largest island, known as Isabella Island. The Galapagos island chain, 600 miles off the coast of Ecuador, is one of the most volcanically active regions in the world. There had been some concern that lava from the Wolf volcano might threaten the world's only colony of pink iguanas, but so far the lava seems to be flowing away from them. I'm Matt Sampson. Something is causing the deaths of entire herds of an already endangered species. The saiga antelope, a dwindling variety found throughout Asia, has been dying in massive numbers, all within Kazakhstan. Within just the last few weeks, researchers say over 120,000 of the animals have perished. That's nearly half the world's population.
The military has confirmed more mistaken shipments of lethal anthrax than previously reported. The Pentagon said on Wednesday that small concentrations of suspected live anthrax were shipped to 51 labs in 17 states and not the earlier reported 12 states. This includes California and Florida. Samples were also sent to Australia and Canada. Officials, meanwhile, have maintained there is no risk to the public.
More than 100 tourists are trapped right now after a powerful earthquake on one of Southeast Asia's tallest peaks. Officials say about a dozen climbers on the mountain are hurt. The magnitude 6 quake rocked Malaysia's Mount Kinabalu earlier today.
Good morning. We contacted the U.S. Embassy in Malaysia, who told us they don't know yet if Americans are among those stranded on the mountain. Some pictures from the region show roads that buckled and collapsed because of the power of the earthquake. Around a dozen people are thought to have been injured. A ranger said helicopters are struggling to reach them because of poor visibility, and there is a cold night ahead.
Merciless, massive tornadoes.
Tornado on the ground!
Ripping across Colorado.
Oh, that's violent.
Terrifying drivers making their way home.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And watch this extraordinary footage captured inside this Colorado funnel cloud. The winds whipping. Seconds later, actually picking up this 4,500-pound Ford Ranger truck with debris flying. The driver who was filming this is okay. His truck severely damaged. And near Denver, you can see the aftermath. Dozens of homes and farms destroyed, this house completely gutted. This SUV picked up and dropped on its roof. And it wasn't just tornadoes. Torrential rain and hail, hammering drivers, including us.
Loud clanks on the car that sound like it's denting it. People have been pulling over.
And then there were these blinding bolts. Overnight in Kansas, drivers unable to see the roads, forced to pull over but still getting battered by winds and rain. And in Missouri, water has taken over many of the roadways, making travel dangerous. This big truck swept away.
A routine patrol proves anything but for one Colorado police officer. Sheridan Police Sergeant Greg Miller was on patrol early Friday morning when his SUV was swallowed by this giant sinkhole. He landed 15 feet below the surface. Miller says his doors wouldn't open, so he had to crawl out onto the roof and pull himself to safety. He suffered some cuts and bruises in the accident, but is otherwise okay. The SUV is a total loss.
Nestling in the mountains of Bavaria, Schloss Elmau is seen as a retreat for Germany's wealthiest. But for the next few days, it will host the leaders of 7 of the world's richest countries. Protected by many thousands of police and military personnel, the G7 will discuss several of the world's flashpoints, notably the conflict in Ukraine. In recent weeks, the fighting has intensified, particularly near Donetsk. This summit is the second such that Russia has been excluded from. The G7 group says Russia's role in Ukraine makes a meaningful discussion impossible. And then there are the thousands of protesters who have promised to try to disrupt the proceedings as much as they can. The authorities have put on a show of force to try to prevent them, with the hope that agreement on the issues is what the G7 summit is remembered for. Dominic Kane, Al Jazeera, Garmisch-Partenkirchen.
Those geese are angry. You would be too. Their beautiful Georgia lake, where they just had their babies this past Mother's Day, is gone. Dried up, ironically, by a powerful rainy thunderstorm. Just like the 10 families in this neighborhood, this little turtle has a long journey back to a normal life. Joey says he can't come up with the money or the permits to fix what nature took away.
Good morning. The water behind me has not reached this high since 1945 when it crested at 38 feet. The water is expected to reach 37 feet today. That's 7 feet above flood stage. 24-hour sandbag stations have been set up, and officials are urging people to pick them up day or night to protect their homes from this rising water. The flooding is swallowing dozens of houses, turning them into islands and submerging them up to their roofs. Louisiana's National Guard worked late into the night filling sandbags, the white satchel serving as a line of defense against the overflowing river.
This is the Circle Drive.
For Caddo Parish Sheriff Steve Prater, the devastation is personal.
The glass is beginning to break from the pressure of the water.
He's trying to save his home from 2 feet of water that's already crept in, surrounding and destroying his family's belongings.
It's devastating.
On Sunday, a man and his dog were evacuated by boat. And Black Hawk helicopters were used to deliver a pair of water pumps to a water treatment plant that's been isolated by the flooding. Lieutenant Terrell Hamilton can't believe just how high this river is.
Wow. One word, wow.
The waters are supposed to stay at 37 feet for the next few days, and they aren't expected to dip below that flood stage until the end of the month. And to make things worse, they're expected to have rain later this week.
Fighting for water. For 3 days, this neighbourhood in Accra has been without clean water. People are getting desperate.
No water to bath, no water to drink. Apart from this one, we are receiving that from government.
This was one of the communities worst affected by Wednesday night's floods. Not only has drinking water been contaminated with petrol, but sewer systems are blocked with rubbish. To avoid an outbreak of a disease like cholera, clean water is a priority, as is rebuilding lives. Many here have seen their homes and possessions destroyed.
They need, like what they are doing now, they need water, they need electricity, they need sanitation, they need food, they need
The Ghanaian government estimates that at least 200 people died as a result of the floods, which caused a petrol station to explode and turned roads into rivers.
A massive fire engulfing a chemical warehouse this morning near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in what officials are describing as a major hazmat incident. Towering flames engulfing the building as thick plumes of smoke billow through the sky. A witness posted this video to Twitter, which he describes as chemicals from a burning warehouse. The blaze began around 3:30 this morning. Officials issued an emergency shelter notice for residents within a mile radius, although it's unclear whether the smoke from the blaze is hazardous.
We just learned moments ago that the fire is not under control, but it's contained. People are being urged again to stay in their homes, but no word yet on injuries or fatalities.
Travis Cruz filmed this from his moving vehicle. He said the tornado was rotating in a clockwise direction, also known as an anticyclonic motion. It's a rare phenomenon in the northern hemisphere that only occurs roughly once out of 1,000 tornadoes. The U.S. is hit on average by 1,000 tornadoes each year, meaning an anticyclonic tornado will only be seen about once a year.
And over to Ukraine, where a huge fire broke out after a massive explosion in a patrol center near the capital, Kiev. Several firefighters are feared to have been killed as they try to put out the fire. Emergency officials say the explosion happened early Tuesday near the town of Vesikhiv, which is about 30 kilometers south of Kiev. And so far, one death has been confirmed. 10 people have been taken to hospital after suffering serious injuries, and 3 firefighters are missing.
People in Indonesia are casting a nervous eye on Mount Sinabung. The volcano on Sumatra, one of Indonesia's main islands, has been spewing clouds of searing gas high into the air since Monday, and hot ash has been tumbling down its slopes. So far, no one's been hurt, but authorities are warning villagers to stay at least 4 miles away. More than 2,000 people have been evacuated. They say the growing size of the lava dome is very unstable and smoldering rocks could come falling down at any time. They've issued the highest level of alert. Mount Sinabung is among some 130 active volcanoes in Indonesia. There's so many because Indonesia sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a turbulent seismic region. Last year, at least 17 people were killed when Mount Sinabung erupted.
That's the only word you need to hear. People in Hawthorne, Nevada met an EF1 tornado close up on Friday. The storm packing winds over 100 miles per hour. The video captured as a man drove through the northern Nevada town during the powerful storm. Signs, fences, and trees are blown about as the driver cautiously made his way around the deserted streets. The heavy winds and rain were accompanied by another surprise.
That right there is golf ball-sized hail.
Over a dozen homes were damaged, with torn rooftops and broken windows. A motel in town suffered $250,000 in damage. Although the tornado caught people by surprise, no injuries were reported. I'm Enriquez Rodriguez, The Weather Channel.
Ukraine, where heavy fighting broke out on Tuesday around Donetsk's airport between Ukrainian government troops and separatist rebels.
Recently, their incoming fire has become stronger. It almost never stops. We are forced to suppress their fire all the times. In any case, if they don't stop firing, it will lead to the continuation of war. We will push them up to Kiev. Nothing good is coming. It will lead to the deaths of civilians on their side and losses to the Ukrainian army.
These recent heavy clashes in eastern parts of the country have raised fears that the region is about to fall back into full-scale war. A leader of the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe called last week for resumed negotiations between the warring sides. The organisation has noted the movement and presence of heavy weapons and their use in areas where they're prohibited by the ceasefire agreement that was signed last February.